What is going on, everyone? I want to talk to you today about the Obi Wan movie and who a villain might be after Solo coming out and some other plans of other movies to come out. There have been a lot of speculation on a plot and potentially a different villain or multiple villains. And so I think, as time has gone by, the thought process behind this has totally changed. Originally, it was speculated that, this would just deal with Obi-Wan struggling through trials and tribulations in the desert, and now it's starting to seem like Disney's building, a different kind of plan behind this movie. So we want to speculate a little bit about what may end up happening. So if you followed the comics, there is a lot of Obi-Wan being on Tatooine. So it's not like he just dropped Luke off and left to go do other stuff. He stayed there. At least for a while. But what we don't know is in his earlier years. We know that he stayed there towards Luke's later years. And you know this especially from if you've seen Star Wars Rebels. You had this showdown with Darth Maul and Obi-Wan on Tatooine. And this was not long before A New Hope. So Obi-Wan was already, settled down on Tatooine by that point. And you also know that he had done some facing off against some Tusken Raiders and some of Jabba's thugs, and he's already faced a couple of people. So a lot of people have speculated maybe that he would leave Tatooine and face Maul. That is a possibility. I'm not sure if that's really going to happen, though. The reason a lot of people think that this is a possibility is because Maul, had that cameo in Solo. So you're like, well, they're putting Maul back in, in between 3 and 4, in earlier than he appeared in Star Wars Rebels. So maybe there's a little bit more to his story and how he got to be, with Crimson Dawn and all that, which it's not really a big stretch of the imagination because it's very similar to the stuff that Maul was doing all along. That being said, there is always that chance that Obi-Wan will have to leave to go on some kind of mission, will run into Maul. They can't meet on Tatooine, though, however, because all of Maul's arc in Star Wars Rebels is all about him trying to find Obi-Wan, which doesn't require them to meet at all. They could have never meet, and he would still want revenge. That was basically the one thing that drove Maul the whole time. So I don't really think that Maul will be Obi-Wan's villain, although there is a possibility there. The other possibility is Jabba, and I don't really think that Jabba will have a huge part to play in this, mostly because of the fact that it's already been talked about in the comics, so that wouldn't be anything new. And then if you get into your just retelling old stories again already, I think you'll have some of the problem that you had with Solo, in that some people just weren't that excited for a story that they pretty much already knew. At least that's kind of how I felt about Solo. I thought it was a very, very well done movie. It just, I wasn't excited about the subject matter because it's hard for me to, really get involved in a story that I kind of already know most of the outcome. So, so if you've already, seen the comic books of Obi-Wan, fighting off Jabba's thugs and making sure that they stayed away from the Owen Lars farm, then it would be a shame for them to try to do that also in the movie. One thing that is possible, though, is that Boba Fett might be involved, and there's a couple of reasons I say that. First off is they did announce that they're looking to make a Boba Fett movie as well, and so if they're looking to make a Boba Fett movie, it definitely could tie into all of these, and it could be that Solo was early enough in the timeline that it's actually going to spread out and be its own kind of like a trilogy of anthology films that are all linked together, separate from Luke Skywalker's specific arc, but still in that same universe. So that's a possibility. And also because Boba Fett, at least in the special edition, was put back into episode 4 to make sure that he was there on Tatooine, during this meeting, during this scene here. That basically means that him and Han Solo knew each other, and you don't get that, at least in the Solo movie, so they're kind of leaving the door open for how they will meet, and Solo ends with Han Solo going to Tatooine, so there is a potential tie-in for not Solo to meet Obi-Wan, because that wouldn't make sense, but for Solo to potentially run into Obi-Wan, an Obi-Wan movie to potentially tie in with Boba Fett. or rather Solo to run into Boba Fett, and for Boba Fett to tie into Obi-Wan. There's always that possibility. I don't necessarily think that Obi-Wan will really be a villain there, only, you know, for the most part, because like there was another comic where Obi-Wan went, you know, was tracking down like Luke to, or Boba Fett was tracking down Luke to Obi-Wan's hut, and there was no like, it would have been weird if it was a place that he had already been. So I don't really anticipate Boba Fett and Obi-Wan fighting in an Obi-Wan movie, but something like that is possible, or it could be other bounty hunters as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be him. I think one thing that seems that it is possible is for Obi-Wan and Darth Vader to have a duel if Obi-Wan does leave Tatooine. And I think any movie about Obi-Wan is going to have to involve him leaving Tatooine, because you just can't have a Star Wars movie that's all in one setting with one kind of sandy backdrop for the entire time. That is going to be pretty boring to watch, and it also doesn't really fit the general feel that Star Wars films tend to have. So I think one of the things that may happen is if Obi-Wan were to leave and run into Darth Vader earlier on in the time frame of fitting in with like this new Jedi Fallen Order game, where there are other Jedi that are early off in the, during the early days of the Empire. Maybe Obi-Wan leaves to go help resettle some Jedi and save them from Darth Vader, who's trying to exterminate all the Jedi. And maybe he fails, but he was able to get away. Or whatever, something like that might be cool. I've always, gone back to the Episode 4 dialogue between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, where Darth Vader says, "You should not have come back." And that never made sense to me, because he was like, well, Obi-Wan was never at the Death Star before, so what does he mean, you should not have come back? So, like, it would be kind of cool if Obi-Wan did, find his way to like the Death Star while it was under construction still, and they ended up getting into a fight and Obi-Wan fled. Something like that would kind of make some of that dialogue have new meaning. So there's always that chance of something like that. Now, that being said, I have a different theory on what I think might be the villain, and I think we could see villains from Clone Wars time. Now, the problem is that, you're going to have Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan. He can't really play that young Obi-Wan quite so much anymore. And, but one of the things I was thinking is, if they start a lot of this movie from, like, this movie might actually start at the point where Obi-Wan sacrifices himself and becomes one with the Force. Like, they could even do, like, the first 5 minutes kind of, like, reshooting that duel of Obi-Wan. Like, there was a fan film where they did that, and they reshot these, and basically it could start with Obi-Wan becoming a Force ghost, and it would be very abstract, because now we're kind of in somewhat unexplored territory. There was a story in in one of the recent books that kind of dealt with Obi-Wan's point of view, how he was like all over the place and disoriented when he first became one with the Force, and so that's why he couldn't visually appear to Luke right away. But, this is a launch pad for a lot of smaller stories about Obi-Wan, maybe trying to find his way. He could even do battle, like in Force World or whatever, with some other creature, some other being, maybe an ancient Sith Lord, maybe someone like Darth Malgus or Exar Kun or something like that. That could be a video or a villain here. It'd be a really cool scene. But if Obi-Wan, if they start this film at the time of him becoming a Force ghost and becoming one with the Force, and it becomes like a spiritual journey film, if you've seen Rebels, like the world between worlds, kind of like that, being one with the Force is kind of opens you up to different like flash points in time. He could go back and maybe, whilst trying to search for his whatever answers and figure out what his path is going forward at this point, he may revisit scenes from his past that steer him towards his answer. So he may use the past to help guide him. If they do something like that, they can have a lot of different enemies. So they may go back. This would be a great opportunity for them to put Asajj Ventress on screen and just be able to see. And now Ewan McGregor can, look younger again, and still play, the Clone Wars Obi-Wan, which would be awesome to have on screen. You could see some really, really great lightsaber action. Do some Clone Wars stuff. I think that would be awesome. It doesn't have to be Asajj. It could be, you know, certain characters that we really haven't seen much of. Maybe Night Sisters. You could bring all kinds of things back from the Clone Wars. It would also be a great opportunity for you to have Ahsoka there, especially since Ahsoka was in A World Between Worlds briefly during Star Wars Rebels. She could have maybe an echo or an imprint left to help guide him. It'd be a great opportunity for you to get Ahsoka on screen in a live-action film. I don't know if they would have who they would have play her, if it would be Ashley Eckstein or not, but that would be really, really cool. That being said, you know, there's a whole lot of different characters. If they're going to jump back through his timeline, they could go into when he was a child, have somebody else do that, have, you know, maybe like a random different dark side user or something like that early on. They could deal with some, you know, questions that were briefly touched on, but maybe not answered thoroughly enough, like Sypha Dyas. And, you know, I know there was that whole thing, well, he became Grievous or not, but I'm not sure if that's still in the canon or the Legends timeline now, so they could explore a lot of that stuff. They could do Grievous as well. You know, and you could do, but you already had Grievous on screen, so I don't think you really need to do that. I think it would be a great opportunity for them to just explore other Force users that were in the Clone Wars series, but not ever on a live-action film. So that would be a great opportunity. You could also deal with Obi-Wan and Satine, which is a huge, you know, unexplored and, you know, mystery and fan-theorized arc. You could touch on that as well, and that could be the opportunity to introduce another type of villain as well. But all culminating with maybe like some type of Exar Kun or Spirit or some kind of, you know, ethereal battle as well, which you could have. Help, you know, and so now all of a sudden this film, you could have Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan in multiple different ages, you know, and whether he's young man, old man, in between, and you know, and now actually do something with this film where you can really explore the Force, really have lots of cool lightsaber duels because you're looking at them all through time, and do something unexpected with this film rather than it just be Obi-Wan wandering the desert, because that would be terribly boring, and that would be, you know, you want to do something, I think you want to do something unexpected. So that's my prediction, and for, you know, for things that we might see as far as villains in the Obi-Wan movie. But I want to hear what you guys think, so go ahead and let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think. Don't forget to check out Crabbok.com as well as my Discord. Hop in there and give some of your, you know, I've been asking people to put upload pictures of their great, painted Star Wars miniatures. We got a lot more stuff like that coming up. And stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe and click that little bell for alerts, because we have a lot of really great news and a lot of interesting stuff coming up very soon. So thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.